the people who lost their belongings were like, no, they were notified that they had to get the trash out by Thursday, and Ashley said that you guys were cleaning it up, and now it took off, so.
You know we saw
Well,
that,
if it's,
right?
I mean, I can organize people to do that.
We have a plan if it's not cleaned up this week, but.
Or he knows he's just.
I doubt he believes it. Just becomes a part of your life if you do it all the time.
He was like,
Well, we have, but we need complaints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
There's a lot on the agenda today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a quorum. I'll call to order the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of Wednesday, April the 12th, 2023. I acknowledge that we are located on traditional territory of the Letchwatach people. I would ask for a motion to adopt the public agenda of April 12, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any additions to the agenda?
Oh, I have a new item,
And it is under,
new business.
yes, and what is it about?
It's about, APC bylaw.
APC, okay. Anyone else? Mark, did you have something there?
No, Gerald, it already got added. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a motion for the agenda as adopted?
As amended.
As amended, yes, sorry.
I'll move that.
Second.
Sorry, not paying attention.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. No petitions or delegations today. Adoption of previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. No business arising, or do we have any business arising? Anyone? From the previous minutes? Yeah. Okay, nothing there. No public considerations. Notice of motion, chair's report, nothing. Staff reports, number 1, development permit DPID 23 Anderson for receipt. Motion, please.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion?
I think Annika will speak there, or John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is to permit the construction of a single-family dwelling and art studio outside the identified Streamside Protection and Enhancement Area, or SPEA, of a lakeside property. The proposed development is permitted by the zoning bylaw. However, as the proposed work is located within 30 metres of the top of bank of a watercourse, connected to fish habitat, and therefore within the environmentally sensitive development permit area, a permit is required. A riparian area assessment has been prepared by a registered biologist, which provides support for the issuance of the development permit and recommendations for the protection of fish habitat and for from the proposed development, pardon me. And given that this development is permitted by the zoning bylaw, is outside the SPIA as identified by the assessment report, issuance of this development permit to allow development to take place is supportable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Seeing none, on receipt, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Recommendation.
I would move recommendation B,
Like to read it, please?
that the committee recommend the environmentally sensitive area development permit DP 1D23 Anderson as attached in the staff report dated April 12th, 2023, be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Number 2, development permit DV 2D23 Giroux for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion?
John will speak to it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application has been received to allow the construction of a 223 square meter accessory building, which will be 7.8 meters in height, which is 1.8 meters higher than permitted by the bylaw. Currently, the property is undeveloped, but there are plans to construct both the accessory building and a new principal single-family dwelling on the property. The proposed structure will be sited a significant distance from the neighbouring properties, the nearest residence being over 110 metres away, and will be well screened from the road. The 23% height variance has been requested to allow the accessory building to accommodate the storage of personal goods, including a fifth-wheel recreational vehicle and a boat. It is planned the building will be converted into a horse barn at a future date once construction of the principal single-family dwelling is completed. And as such, all other zoning setback and lot coverage requirements of the property have been observed. The degree of impact should be minimal, and the requested variance is therefore supportable. And Mr. Chairman, we have received 2 items of correspondence respecting this application, and these have been placed in front of you for this morning's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. Any discussion from directors? Seeing
I'm
none?
not seeing those correspondences. Are they available online?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe they are available online currently. I would recommend that after the motion to receipt has been dealt with, that a separate motion to receive the 2 items of correspondence. We will then, of course, attach them as part of the public record and to the minutes as well.
Thank you. On receipt then? All those in favor? Opposed? None? That is carried. Can we have that separate motion, please, for
Yep.
receipt of the correspondence?
I would move that a motion for receipt of the correspondence. There's 2 of them. Thank you.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Recommendation? Yes, you may.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I noticed that in one of the pieces of correspondence, the writer asks a question about this application because they're saying that it's an accessory building, but they're asking what it's accessory to. So is there an answer to that? Because I'm not clear on that either. It's the first building that's being built, right?
Does staff wish to comment on that?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that an application has been received for building permit for the main structure on this property. So it will be accessory to that main structure. And I should also add there are no plans for any kind of commercial activity on the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything further?
I just have one question. The one correspondence doesn't list an address that was close to where this permit is being asked for. So I'm just wondering, does the person live close by?
Thank you. Through the chair. The individual has property on the other side of the road, Iron River Road, from the subject property, but he resides elsewhere, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Anything further, Director Rice?
No.
On receipt of the correspondence, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. A recommendation, please.
I would move recommendation B, that the committee recommend the development variance permit, DV 2D23. I'm not sure if I can pronounce the last name, as presented in the staff report, dated April 12, 2023, be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
Mr. Chairman, could we have the name of the seconder? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Do we have a seconder? Did you second it?
I'm seconding it now.
Shall I call the question again?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 3, request for subdivision frontage relief for receipt.
So moved.
Second.
I think John will speak to this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is to allow a lot line adjustment for 6 adjoining lots of record on Reed Island. The parcels are all zone forestry 1 and are bounded by a combination of forestry and rural zone parcels on all sides but the east, where the ocean forms a boundary with each of the reconfigured lots. The purpose of the subdivision is to provide legal road access and ocean frontage to each of the 6 parcels. At the present time, Lambert Road, which is shown as Plan VIP 61861, provides informal access, with the proposal dedicating the remainder of Lambert Road as legal access in order to achieve road frontage as required under the Local Government Act. And following a review of the proposal, it conforms to the minimum site area requirement, 16 hectares, but each of the lots, except for one, does not provide the minimum frontage on both the ocean and the road, which is a requirement of our bylaw number 64, which is the Subdivision Servicing Procedures bylaw. And as a result of the non-compliance with that bylaw, the application is coming forward for you today to relax that requirement, to allow for these lots to be under the 10% frontage on both road and ocean frontage. Once approval is given, then the subdivision may proceed further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. Any discussion from directors? Director Mawhinney,
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions, if I may.
go right ahead.
My first question is there a current subdivision which is non-conforming? Is that what the second paragraph in the report refers to? It says, given that the proposal intends to improve the subdivision design by creating new parcels that adhere to the minimum 16-hectare lot size. So I'm curious if there is a non-conforming subdivision, and if that's my first question. And I guess, how did it get achieved if it is non-conforming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can answer that. There are 6 parcels already, and they're what they
There's
call
7.
lots of record.
I believe there's 7.
And they were created long before there was any zoning or requirements for frontage on the ocean or the highway. So basically what's happening now is the lots are being reconfigured to bring them into compliance with legislation.
Okay, thank you. My next question is that at least 2, if not 3, of the proposed lots look like panhandles, Lot 2 and Lot 4 in particular. And under the Desolation Sound Rural Land Use Bylaw, it states that lots with narrow frontages for access purposes, brackets panhandle, are not permitted. And so I'm questioning whether these proposed lots are not only non-conforming as to frontage, but also the panhandle aspect.
That's an interesting question. I would contend that the panhandles in this case are not panhandles because they're sufficiently wide as not to feature as panhandles. The idea of a panhandle is a narrow, very narrow strip of land in order to provide access for stacked lots. And this isn't what's happening here. It's basically an attempt to allow each of the lots to provide frontage on the ocean, which is a requirement under the subdivision servicing bylaw. So they really don't have any other choice but to configure them this way. And from what I can see here, the minimum width, even on lot number 4, is 100 meters wide along the narrow strip, but it's not technically a panhandle.
So my next question is, if they're not technically panhandles, they sure look like panhandles, and this land is currently zoned forestry and is not being asked for a rezoning because that would trigger a community consultation, which has not been triggered by this application. And in the 24 hours that or 48 hours that I've communicated with residents of the area, they're all quite surprised that there has been no communication from the applicant about this proposal, and quite a lot of concern because Reed Islanders would really appreciate their population to grow and flourish. And adding 6 waterfront, arguably panhandle lots to Reed Island is not necessarily providing the lower cost land that young folks with families would be able to afford to, or so I'm not really seeing why, if this proposal is not only asking for relief for road and waterfront frontage for 5 out of 6 lots and has panhandles, why it should be supported. Lower priced inland lots are more attainable to younger people and people interested in wild island homesteading. I understand the desire of Timber West, the landholder, to maximize their potential profits, but I don't think that the Desolation Rural Land Use Bylaw permits this, and I'm not supportive of this application. I do have one more question, and that is, would this go to public hearing after this, or no?
Mr. Chairman, no, this would not go to public hearing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Just to clarify, normally it would not. The board, of course, can take anything it wishes to public hearing. That's up to the board, but typically this would not be automatically sent to a public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification.
Anything further from directors? Seeing none, on receipt. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That's carried. A recommendation, please.
I would like to move that we deny the request for subdivision frontage relief.
Is there a seconder?
Second that.
Discussion?
Second Benish.
Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? 1 opposed. That's carried. Director Rice is opposed. All right, number 4. Coubertin OCP rezoning consultation process, York Road at Chantrell Way, for receipt.
Move receipt?
Second.
We have a seconder.
And John will speak to this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's the last one of mine this morning. Application is being received to consider redesignating and rezoning a 15. Sorry, Mark. An official community plan rezoning application has been received to consider redesignating and rezoning a 15.6 hectare parcel at the corner of York Road and Chantrell Way from rural to country residential in order to facilitate a 6-lot subdivision of the property. The proposed lots would vary in size from 2.4 to 2.8 hectares, with all lots fronting onto York Road. And a small 800 square metre portion of proposed Lot 5 is in the Agricultural Land Reserve, which will be referred to the Agricultural Land Commission for comment. Also, the top portions of proposed Lots 3 and 4 are impacted by the Riparian Areas Protection Regulation and may require an environmentally sensitive areas development permit prior to subdivision approval. A proposed First Nations consultation process and agency referral list has been prepared for the committee's consideration, and following board approval of this process, a formal referral of the application will be provided to the identified agencies and First Nations for review and comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. Any discussion from directors? Seeing none, on receipt, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Recommendation.
I would move option B, that the committee recommend the First Nations consulting process as outlined in the staff report dated April 12, 2023, for application CP 1D23 RZ 1D23 Timber West be approved.
We have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Director Maloney. Discussion? Director Maloney?
I was curious, this is an OCP rezoning. If or when a public consultation occurs, is it happen after the receipt of these referrals, or how does that happen?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that question. What will happen next will be that this application will be, after the board has ratified this decision, be sent out for consultation by the agencies and the First Nations. They'll have approximately a month to respond, at which time a second report to be brought back to EASC, and also with a recommendation for first and second readings and to set a public hearing date. But that would be after the subsequent board meeting. There'll be a public hearing, and then there'll be a third board meeting which would then consider the results of the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for explaining that. That's helpful.
Anything further? Seeing none, on the item B, all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Item C.
I would move recommendation C, that the committee recommend the agency referral list as outlined in the staff report dated April 12, 2023 for application CP 1D23 RZ 1D23 Timber West be approved.
I'll second that.
Director Winnie has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item 5, backyard chickens, electoral area D for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Second.
I don't think staff have anything to add to this, Mr. Chair.
Directors, any discussion? Seeing none, on receipt, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Recommendation, please.
I would move recommendation B, that the committee recommend the draft bylaw attached to the March 30th, 2023 report from the Chief Administration Officer be considered by the board for the first and second readings, and that the public hearing for the amendment bylaw be waived in accordance with Section 464, brackets 2 of the Local Government Act.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, do you have discussion, Joe?
I just wanted to add one thing for the public record, that I've only received one email that was asking to not go ahead with this bylaw. So that's all I've received from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, then on the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that's carried. Permit requirements for farm buildings, item 6 for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion?
Staff don't have anything to add on this, Mr. Chair.
Alrighty. Comments from directors? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor?
There is an ask here.
There is a what?
There's two options for directors to choose from.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're still in receipt.
We're on receipt, yes.
Yeah.
So on receipt, all those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, that's carried on the recommendation.
Sorry, I've lost my place here.
Do you have recommendation, Director Rice?
I would move recommendation.
Option 1.
Yes, option 1.
That-
That the bylaw be amended please.
That the committee recommend that SRD bylaw number 158 be amended to provide an exemption from building permit requirements for low human occupancy farm buildings.
Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Oh, you moved it.
Oh, okay.
You want to second it, John?
I'll second. Thank you.
Any comments? Discussion? All right, on the question, all those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Building height regulation, Electoral Area D for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Nothing from staff, Mr. Chair.
No comments from directors? Call the question on receipt. All those in favor? None opposed? That's carried. Recommendation, please.
I'd move recommendation B, that the committee recommend that the draft bylaw attached to the April 6, 2023 report for the Chief Administration Officer be considered by the board for the first and second reading, and that the public hearing for the amendment bylaw be waived in accordance with Section 4642 of the Local Government Act.
Do we have a seconder?
Second. Mawini.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Number 8, Cortez Island Curbside Recycling Pickup Remediation Plan for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion?
I believe Wolfgang will speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Through the chair to the committee, good morning, everyone. This is a report with regards to the letter that we received from Recycle BC, where they're asking the regional district to develop a collection rail remediation plan for Cortez Island. So in late January, we had a meeting with Recycle BC staff to understand the request to the regional district. We have been informed that the Cortez Island has the lowest volume compared to any other community in the province when it comes to recycling material. We have been asked to have a remediation plan developed. We also have meetings with the Comex Waste Management, as well with the contractor that operates the service on Cortez Island, to understand what are the volumes that recycling material that people are bringing to the depot, as well to understand the recycling material that is being placed on the curbside. So what's really interesting is that the majority of the volume of recycling material coming to the depot is actually taken by the residents and is now collected on the curbside program. We believe that that's just, that's one of the reasons. It's a cultural and custom thing that is happening on the island. Literally, in order for us to meet the minimum requirements in the agreement that we signed with Recycle BC, which is 67 kilograms per household, we will need to actually request to residents of Cortez Islands that every single recycling material be placed on the curbside, which will be pretty difficult to meet, as we all know that. And not everybody who brings this recycling material to the depot is part of the curbside collection program. That includes, the dogs and commercial as well. That's correct. So we have until April 15, which are 3 more days, to actually have a draft. It is a draft. We have it ready to be submitted to Recycle BC after we met with them and as I mentioned before, with other stakeholders. Basically, what we're suggesting is to promote more education. The problem that if we don't come up with an agreement with Recycle BC, there is a chance that we lose part of the incentives, or 100% of the incentives that they're giving us. Right now, it's $43 per house, and that multiplied for the number of residents is approximately, we're getting $29,000 a year on incentives for this. So if we're gonna try our best to negotiate this with Recycle BC. Hopefully we'll be successful and we'll be able to reduce the volumes that they're asking us for. If we're not successful, the user rates will probably have to go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Any discussion from directors?
Yeah, I've got just a little bit to add here. The draft proposal, are we going to see that before April 15th? Or just wondering, because it has been, we received this correspondence end of January and it's now April 12th. Just wondering why, we're getting this now instead of earlier.
So that's correct. The letter that we received was back in January. We have been working with Recycle BC, Common Waste Management, our contractor. We were not able to introduce this in the previous meeting in last month. That's where we are, and we're happy to share a draft of this plan with you if you're interested.
Thanks. Yes, I'd love to.
It's basically education, what we're promoting. We don't see any other option available for us to actually ask cortesians to increase the recycling volumes of, yeah.
Yeah, with discussion, I've had a couple days to discuss with folks on Cortez, and a couple of ideas that came up is one, since 2020, glass got stopped being picked up on the curbside collection. So I think that's been a big aspect as to why the volumes, why the weight has decreased. And if glass was picked up on curbside, that would certainly have a big impact on the amount that was picked up curbside. So that's one, I think, thing worth considering. And I have spoken with the contractor, and they're open to that happening as well. And secondly, looking at the option of having garbage picked up every 2 weeks and having recycling picked up every 2 weeks, and just changing the way that that's done, that might be another way that increases the recycling that gets picked up. I really appreciate staff's effort on this, and understand this is a challenging thing. It is part of the culture that people do show up at the recycling center to recycle their items there, partly because curbside also doesn't pick up the soft plastics. And Cortez is pretty environmentally conscious and wants to recycle their soft plastics, and that the fact that the free store is there, and that's another reason to show up at the depot. So look forward to seeing the draft report, and hope we can resolve this and keep these subsidies going so that user fees are not increased. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Benesh. Anything further? On receipt, all those in favor? None opposed, so that is carried. Number 9, Hayward Valley Solid Waste Services rates for receipt.
Move receipt.
Seconded by Director Rice.
Nothing from staff unless you have something, Mr. Chair. Excuse me.
I have nothing, so anything else from directors? Nothing there, so I'll call the question on receipt. All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. The recommendation?
I'll move recommendation B, that the committee recommend that a bylaw to amend the rates charged for the use of the Hayward Valley Solid Waste Collection Service be prepared for further consideration.
Do you have a seconder?
Me.
Director Malini. Any discussion? Seeing none, call a question. All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. And recommendation C.
Go ahead.
I can move C.
Go ahead.
That a contract amendment with Waste Management to include provision for additional bags and receptacles be prepared for further consideration.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Number D, Area D Transit Service Update for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion?
Wolfgang will speak to this.
Sorry, through the CAO to the committee, this is the report in front of you is about funding for bus shelters that is being proposed for Electoral Area D, as well opportunities for input in the BC Transit Future Plan process with regards routes and schedules. So back in January at the director single participant meetings and subsequent meetings about the budget, there were discussions about a request to actually build 4 bus shelters in Electoral Area D, as well to allocate $20,000. So we have been working with the city of Campbell River, and we submitted in early January grant application to BC Transit for those 4 shelters. The application was submitted in late 2022, and in January we found out that we were unsuccessful. However, the city of Campbell River, on behalf of the regional district, has recommended a new opportunity to apply for those 4 shelters, and that application has been submitted to the Ministry of Transportation, and we're still waiting to hear from them. We're hoping to be successful. So we have also been proactive, trying to get a quote to understand how much would actually cost us to replace to actually install those 4 bus shelters. We know that, I apologize, there is a typo in the report for $19,999. It's actually $99,999. So if we, $99,000, and the quote that we have been received is for $108,000, with a difference that could be paid with the $20,000 that have been allocated. So we're hoping that, that we get good news pretty soon as well. We're trying to negotiate an operating and maintenance contract with the city of Campbell River. That's something that is coming up. We will be presenting in our staff report. And we have some alternatives included with the staff report today with 3 options. So we have an option 1, which is that a report outlining the transit shelter improvements that could be undertaken with the $20,000 currently budgeted be prepared for further consideration. The second option is that a decision on proposed transit shelter improvements be deferred pending a decision on the current grant application that we submitted to the Ministry of Transportation. And the option C is that further work on the issue of transit shelters be deferred until the 2024 operating budget is being considered.
Thank you. Discussion from directors?
I have a question.
Director Mawini, go ahead.
I'm just looking for a point of clarification. That the report said that they were going to be $19,000, but they're actually $99,000. Is that correct?
That's the maximum amount given in this grant.
Okay.
And the quote received is 108. So there is a variance right there and we have the money available in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? On receipt, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried.
I would like to move an option there.
Go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and move option A. I think that with regards to the bus shelters, I mean, the area hasn't had them for a number of years, and
Could you just read out option A there, Director Rice?
The option A is that a report outlining the transit shelter improvements that could be undertaken with the $20,000 currently budgeted be prepared for further consideration.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Go ahead.
So yes, I just think that putting this off for another year or 2 doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So let's go ahead and see what we can get done.
Any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 11, Huspatas Water System Servicing Requirements for Cayucot School, Walters Island, and Okemee Island for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
I think Sheena will speak to this, I believe.
Thank you, directors. Through the chair to the directors. So we had a really interesting meeting last year with the province about the issue of the water supply for the areas off treaty lands near the Cayucot and Huspatas treaty lands. So currently the Cayucot, the KCFN are providing water to a bunch of areas off treaty, including Walters Island, Okemee Island, teachers' residence, and a few other areas. As part of some changes to the legislation, the KCFN had to apply for a groundwater license, at which point it got on the province's radar that the mechanisms aren't in place for the KCFN to actually be water suppliers, a utility or otherwise, which is what would be required for them to continue supplying the water to those areas. The province has sort of been shifting and would like local governments to take over small water supplies in situations like this, and so that's why they suggested that the Strathcona Regional District might be the best position to become the water suppliers. It would likely be similar to the arrangement in Area D, where we would purchase bulk water from another jurisdiction and sort of just handle the distribution of that. So the KCFN had some significant upgrades they had to do to their system before the province would require them to cease providing water to those areas off treaty lands. There's a sort of a 2 to 3 year window for those improvements to take place, at which point the folks off treaty lands will need to find an alternate course to receive the water. The KCFN could apply for a certificate of public necessity and convenience in order to continue doing that, but they have suggested that they're not interested in that. It's a fairly onerous and expensive process for such a small system. So that's where we are right now, with the province requesting that, and we have not been successful in getting in contact with the KCFN to get an update, a sort of a status update on where they are with their project. If we are able to collaborate, there would likely be some efficiencies in engineering and whatnot in order to design and construct any improvements. So we're hoping we can get in touch with them and get a little bit more information, but that's still an ongoing challenge for us. There has been a little bit of work done on it. You'll see in the board report there was a study done back in January of 2021 about it, but conditions on the ground have changed since then, so we're not even really sure what we're dealing with at this point. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. So I have a question, actually. Is Island Health going to require a water treatment facility over there as they have done in Sayward over shared water lines?
Yeah, so the KCFN have to do water treatment to supply water on treaty lands. So essentially they would be the ones, they've got a couple wells nearby that would harvest the water, the groundwater, and then treat it, and then we would buy it pre-treated as bulk water, or somebody could buy it pre-treated as bulk water similar to the Area D.
Right, and they've indicated that they'd be interested in doing that?
That was what was suggested, but again, it's one conversation where we've been trying to get in touch with them to sort of further that discussion.
Thank you.
If I can, I'll just add some commentary to that, Mr. Chair. I think this is a discussion we also need to have with the MLA, and in terms of, that is our kind of our best and only case scenario to be able to buy bulk water. For that area, as you know, quite small, for us to treat water, develop it, it's gonna cost an astronomical amount of money. Yeah. Even, I think, operating it, our really only option is gonna be to somehow get a joint operator with KCFN that can help operate there. And I think it should be up to the province to help subsidize some of the funding for this. So I think it should be brought to the attention of the MLA and Island Health to determine how we on Walters Cove are going to deal with supplying or buying this water. Who knows what the cost of that water will be too? And KCFN's going to have a significant cost. They have operating costs, and then we buy it off them, and then who maintains our distribution system, and hopefully we can do that through some joint contract operation.
That's right, and First Nations does have their own resort on Walters Islands there, so I'm sure they'd be interested in supplying that with water as well.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm not sure what they're doing with that resort now, whether that's been condemned or it's operational. So, yeah, that would be helpful. But I just can't see any scenario other than some kind of joint partnership, as it's just going to be way too expensive. And then you can't cut those people off of water. So,
do you need any kind of motion on this? Or
no, just kind of bringing it to your attention of what we're working on. And if it gets to a point where we need to escalate that, we'll certainly bring it forward. But being aware of the magnitude of cost for those 30 homes is ridiculous.
Well, thank you for that. Anything further? Seeing none, on receipt. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Item 12, request for financial assistance, Cortez Community Radio Society, for receipt.
Move receipt.
Director Rice has seconded that. Discussion? Seeing none, call it.
Yeah.
Got discussion? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I can question afterwards.
Well, I'm going to call a question on receipt, and there's nothing further, so now's your time.
Yeah, just I had a question regarding the budget that's outlined there. It's saying that there's $25,000 available for 2023 for Cortez Grant and Aid, and that this funding is coming out of that $25,000, including all the grants that we just approved. My understanding is that because of the election year last year, everything got pushed and moved late, and all the grants that we've already approved should have come out of the 2022 budget with still some remaining amount left that would be added onto the 2023 budget. So it seems to me that this budget that we're looking at is incorrect because we have excess left from 2022, and that these grants that have already been approved should have come out of the 2022 budget. I'm just wondering if the staff can comment on that.
Well, I'm not looking at it right now, the budget number. So any money that was a carry forward in that budget for 2022 would have been incorporated in 2023 and added to the new amount. Mike, I think it's best if we get something back to you offline, because I'm not staring at it right now. I don't have access to it. So I can consolidate what the approved budget was and what the remainder and where monies came out either in 2022 or 2023 for you later.
Okay.
Anything further?
So, no.
On receipt, all those in favor? Opposed, none, that's carried. Did you have a motion, Director Vinesh?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that I'd like to move option A, that the committee recommend that the grant request by the Cortez Community Radio Association be supported by the board. And I would add to that, and that it come out of the excess from 2022 funding.
So the budget is what is budget. Like when you say excess, we only have one budget line item. So whatever's in the approved budget is in there. So there's no such thing as excess. Either a surplus has been incorporated into the financial plan, and whatever that number is, it is. So I wouldn't add the excess. There is no such thing as excess.
Okay, well, maybe I'll change that to surplus then.
Was there an amount in that motion?
Any surplus would have been incorporated in the 2023 financial plan. So there's just one line item for the grants and aid for Cortez Island.
So, yeah, okay. I guess I'm just confused because it's saying that we're spending $18,000 plus this grant application for 2023 funding, when it should be from 2022. Certainly, the 5 grants that were already approved earlier this year.
I'll have to get back to you on that. Like when those grants were approved. Again, if they were paid in 223, they'd come out of 223 budget. If they were paid in 222, they would have come out of that budget.
Okay, so just to confirm, because the grant and aid funding didn't get spent in 2022, that surplus gets added to 2023. Is that, confirm that?
Typically, yes, but I'm not staring at what that number is, so I don't know. I don't know what the total grant and aid number for Cortez for 2023 is.
Okay, it's saying 25,000, but there should have been the surplus from 2022 added to that. And I'm just concerned that surplus isn't being shown here and has disappeared.
Well, the surplus would never disappear. Like in regional districts, the budget for grant and aids, for example, has to always stay in grants and aid. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to go anywhere. If there's surplus money, it's carried forward. If there's deficit money, it's subtracted from next year's budget. So there's nowhere for it to disappear. It's either spent or it didn't exist.
Okay, thank you.
We'll confirm what the 2023 financial plan for Cortez grants and aid was. That would include the requisition and any surplus from 2022, and what grants have been approved in 2022 and 2023 for you.
Great, thank you. So just to add there, Gerald, I'll just add to the option B that the committee recommend that the grant request by the Cortez Community Radio Society for $2,000 be supported by the board.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Bylaws. Electoral Area D, Advisory Planning Commission for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion? See none on receipt. All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. And the recommendation.
I'd move B, that the draft bylaw for Electoral Area D Advisory Planning Commission be recommended for adoption by the regional board.
Second, Mawini.
Discussion? See none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Item 2, Noise Control Bylaw, Electoral Area A, for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? See none, that's carried. Or call the question, all those in favor? Opposed? See none, that's carried. And let me get down to the bottom here. Do we have a recommendation? Director Rice, please.
I don't have the recommendation.
Oh, I got it right here for you.
I would move that staff amend the proposed Area A noise bylaw. My mic? Sorry. I would move that staff amend the proposed Area A noise bylaw noise control bylaw and bring it back to the east for further discussion.
Seconder? Director Mawini, a
I'll second that.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Correspondence, none. Director's reports, none. New business, we have some. Director Mawini.
Thank you, Chair. As stated in the adopted minutes of the March 15th Electoral Area Services Committee meeting, the matter of APC draft bylaws was deferred to the next meeting, which is today. As such, I would like to take the opportunity to provide direction to staff on items I would like to have included in an Area C APC bylaw, if I may.
Do we need a motion to do this or what?
No, do you have a written list of that?
I do.
Okay, so you can do a couple things. One, you can speak to it, which happy to, and then maybe in the motion that that those comments be received and incorporated in the bylaw by staff.
Oh,
So you
okay,
have.
So you don't necessarily need me to tell you all of my ideas right now?
That's up to you. But if you have them, you can make a motion to have those comments. I would say typically you would read through them and then physically supply them with staff and have a resolution similar to what Gerald just had, that those comments be incorporated in the draft APC bylaw.
Okay.
If you don't speak to them, I guess nobody knows what they are, from the public, if you will. And you don't have
Well,
them.
wouldn't they see them and they were in a draft form? It doesn't matter to me. I have lots of
Yeah,
paper
that's
right
true.
here.
Yeah, go ahead, run through your points.
Okay, well, I do have a copy of the current draft bylaw, and some of the things that I'm not clear on, like the first whereas paragraph doesn't include the word license, as the definition of application does include license, so maybe license should be included in the first whereas paragraph. In the third paragraph, it talks about 2/3 of the members of an advisory planning commission must be residents of the electoral area. And I was wondering if that was a legal constraint or if we could say that at least 90% of members are residents.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to respond to that? The 2/3 requirement is a statutory requirement. Obviously, the board could be more restrictive if it wishes, but cannot drop below that threshold set by the province.
Okay, great. As to commission membership, I would like to recommend that it should comprise of not more than 11 persons representing a cross-section of the community. The current draft bylaw that I was in the agenda says the word ratepayers, and I'd like to strike the word ratepayers unless it's a provincial requirement. As to the appointment of the members, I like the first choice in the options presented. I was curious about adding this following line, which is something that I found in the Cowichan Valley Regional District APC bylaw, which says, in making appointments to an electoral area APC, the board will consider membership that is representative of the people and geographic zones in the electoral area for which the appointments are sought. I'm just going to keep going with all my ideas.
Yeah,
Is that
just run
cool?
through them
Okay.
and then you can make a motion.
Okay. The director and alternate director are not eligible to be members of the electoral area APC, but may attend APC meetings in a resource capacity. I wasn't sure about 5.2 and was wondering if it could be struck, or instead, 5.2, if I should read it out loud, is that members of the commission shall serve at the pleasure of the board, and I'm not, that one I just don't really understand. So I was also considering adding to 5.3 that the board may remove any member from an APC at any time by an affirmative vote of not less than 2/3 of the directors entitled to vote upon the recommendation of the area director. I would also like the electoral area C APC to consist of a minimum of 6 and not more than 11 members. and a term not exceeding 3 years and term limits of 6 years. I was curious about the idea of electing a chair and a vice chair, so that if the chair is unavailable, then there is a vice chair ready to step in. And as to referrals, the corporate officer will notify the director when a referral is made to their electoral area APC. That the corporate officer may refer matters respecting land use, community planning, proposed bylaws, permits, or licenses to the APC in order that the APC may advise the corporate officer and board or director on those matters. And the board may refer a matter to one or more APCs if the corporate officer has not done so and the board wishes to have the advice of the APC on the matter. And a director may refer a matter to the director's APC if the corporate officer has not done so and the director wishes to have the advice of the APC on the matter. The APC to which a matter is referred will provide its recommendations within 40 days of the date of referral, unless a longer time is specified in the referral, in which case the recommendation must be provided within that time period. I also found that in some of my research, some other APC bylaws have a procedures section, and that's something that I'm curious about adding for this one for clarity for APC members. Do you have thoughts on that, corporate officer?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure what the reference is to actually when we talk about procedures. Are we talking about procedures at meetings of the Advisory Planning Commission?
Yes. For instance, at the first meeting of each new year, the APC will elect one of its members as chairperson, another person as vice chair to act in the absence of the chair. The corporate officer may assign a SRD representative to serve as a recording secretary or something such as a majority of the members of an APC will be deemed a quorum. Following the first meeting of each calendar year, each APC will forward a schedule of regular meetings, including dates and times, to the corporate officer. Those are the sorts of things that I found that were procedural that I was wondering about including.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we can certainly bring back a draft bylaw with those things addressed. I'm not sure that all of them would be possible, but I get what Director Mawhinney is suggesting.
Yeah, if I can just add, Mr. Chair, I think there's a number of those, just listening to them, there's a number of legislative requirements that wouldn't allow us to do some of the things that Director Mawhinney is asking for. I think the easiest thing to do is to receive these comments from Director Mawhinney, and we'll prepare a staff report on what we can and cannot do.
Okay, thank you. I will pass you all my papers. Do I need to make a motion now?
You need to make a motion, yeah.
Okay,
As the CEO suggested there, do you remember what he said?
no.
So that staff receive your comments and bring back a report for committee's consideration.
Could it be bring back a draft bylaw?
I would, maybe, depends on those comments. There's going to be some things in there. I'm not sure. It depends on your comments and what we can and cannot do.
Okay. Okay, well, I would like to move that the,
Say so moved. I think Tom got that.
say that again?
So moved.
So moved, except that I would like to add a report or preferably a draft bylaw, if it can be achieved.
Okay. Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And we need a motion to consider the addendum.
So moved.
Seconded by Director Rice. All those in favor? That's carried. Unopposed. And that the report from Director Willie be received. Motion for receipt, please.
Move
Move receipt.
Okay, Director Rice and Director Mawhinney. Any discussion? Seeing none. On receipt, all those in favor? Opposed? And a motion, please. Do you have that motion, Director Rice?
I do. That the committee recommend that the board approve a grant in aid to be paid from the Electoral Area A grant in aid budget for $700 to the Sayward Future Society for the RCMP Bicycle Rodeo and Canada Day celebration expenses.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Director Mooney has seconded that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Down to the bottom here, I think we're done. And a motion for termination.
Move termination.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much.